Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank Dr. Dom and Doria Martin, our intern. So this study is about the relationship between tears of the ligamentum teres and acetabular undercoverage, and does micro-instability plays a role. So until a few years ago, the hip was considered as a stable joint. However, we know today that there is some micromotion within the hip. Now, although on first look those two hips may look the same, we can see that the left hip is more covered than the right hip. So maybe there is more motion on the right hip, and maybe some tears of the ligamentum teres may occur. So the hypothesis of the study was that the acetabular architecture, as measured by the center edge angle and acetabular inclination, may lead to a conclusion about the radiographic stability, whether it's high or whether it's low, and then the ligamentum teres incidence may be low or high accordingly. So the purpose of the study was to demonstrate the relationship between radiographic measurements of the acetabular architecture and the ligamentum teres tearing. We included patients who underwent hip arthroscopy by Dr. Dom between April 2008 and February 2011, and were younger than 50 years old. We excluded patients that had tonus grade 2 or 3, that had any previous hip conditions such as perces, skiffy, or AVN. We exclude patients with dysplasia, center edge angle below 20 degrees, any revision surgeries, and any traumatic injuries. In order to quantify the radiographic stability, we measured the center edge angle, the angle of Weberg. So on the right side, it was 18, and on the left, it's 47. We also measured the acetabular inclination, the tonus angle, and over here, on the right side, it's 15, and on the left side, it's -1. So in order to combine both, we created the stability index, which is actually only the difference between the center edge angle and the acetabular inclination. So on the right side, it's 3 degrees, and on the left side, it's 48 degrees. Higher stability index means more radiographically stable joint, whereas lower stability index means radiographically less stable joint. We also measured the acetabular retroversion. We measured the crossover sign. Over here in blue is the anterior wall, and black the posterior wall. And in order to quantify that, we regarded the center of the acetabulum as 50%, so we can say that this crossover sign is about 45%. We also measured the ischial prominences and its distance from the ilioischial line, so it's about 16 millimeters on the left side. This is another example of smaller crossover sign, anterior wall again, and this is around 10%. And this is the ischial prominence, which is also smaller. So this patient has less retroversion of the hip. So as for the results, overall we had 358 hips included in the study, and about 47% of them had partial or full thickness tear of the ligamentum teres, and we have a very low threshold for defining partial tear of the ligamentum teres. As for the stability index and its components, so the center edge angle was lower for patients with ligamentum teres tear. The acetabular inclination was higher, although not statistically significant, and the stability index was lower as well. Now, although the center edge angle and the stability index were statistically significant, clinically this difference of 3 degrees and 2 degrees is not significant. For that reason, we decided to divide the patient into 3 groups, having the lower 25 percentile as low stability index, below 16 degrees of stability index, and the upper 25th percentile as high stability index that was above 38 degrees of stability index. So this is an example of a patient with high stability index on both sides. He has on the right 53 degrees and on the left 50 degrees of stability index. And this example shows a patient who has medium stability index on the right, 24 degrees, whereas on the left it's only 2 degrees. So we have low stability index. You can see that the inclination is very high. On the left, it's 19 degrees. So we did find a difference in the incidence of ligamentum teres between the 3 groups. We also find that there is a higher risk of 1.74 times of patients with low stability index in compared to patients with high stability index to have tears of the ligamentum teres. As for the acetabular retroversion, patients who had ligamentum teres has lower size of crossover sign, and also the ischial spine prominence was smaller. Both were statistically significant. So for the discussion, we can conclude that the ligamentum teres were less frequent with high stability index, which means the lateral stability, and the acetabular retroversion, which means anterior stability. Overall, the micro-instability may tie the low stability index, no signs of acetabular retroversion, and ligamentum teres there, and we may regard those hips as maybe less stable. So we conclude that in a less stable hip, acetabuloplasty should be minimized and capsule application should be considered. We also need to refine the role and technique for ligamentum teres reconstruction, whether we should do it and whether it has a place. Thank you very much.